In the days before modern media and music, the main means of communication throughout the colonies was the newspaper, and poems were regularly featured as somewhat of opinion pieces. A classic city versus country battle erupted across the pages of the Bulletin, raging between 1892 and 1893, with a series of poetic debates between Henry Lawson and Banjo Paterson, known as the Bulletin Debate, with a few other poets also chiming in for good measure. A 19th century poetry slam, the Bulletin Debate was a roast battle for the ages. A great divide of sorts, arguably illustrating the perceived superiority complex of the city perspective in the minds of those that lived in one. Those in the city thinking that they know better than their country cousins, a resentment still strongly felt by many in the bush towards many who wouldn't last more than a few days when confronted with the harsh realities of bush life. Sometimes referred to as the bush legend, in its day the Bulletin was a popular and influential publication and often supported the typical national self-image held by many Australians of the time. However, author Tony Moore observed in his 1997 paper that the bohemian traits revered by the Bulletin writers are almost a caricature of the Australian national type propagated by the journal. Mateship and blokey bonding to the exclusion of family life, hostility to religion, personified by the Protestant wowser, ironic humour, a fondness for alcohol, pubs and gambling, preoccupation with freewheeling Australian identity, overlaid with Francophilia and Irish nationalism, invariably opposed to a conservative Englishness, and an occasional flirtation with political causes such as socialism and republicanism. The identification of the bohemian with male mateship remains a strong thread in the Australian tradition. Widely followed by the public, the Bulletin Debate played a substantial part in Australia's societal discourse at the time, reinforcing the bush as a significant part of Australia's national identity. There was never a clear winner to this debate. More to the point, how could there ever be? It's a matter of each to their own. Love it or hate it, bush life isn't for everyone, nor is city life for that matter. However, Paterson presented Australia with the desired image of its national identity, and his short story collection subsequently garnered spectacular sales. Since the dawn of European settlement, bush poetry has formed a large part of Australia's national identity. Both well and truly prominent voices of federation, Henry Lawson and Banjo Paterson are widely regarded as Australia's greatest bush poets, their words forging an idealised picture and perception of pioneer Australia at the turn of the 20th century. Despite their vastly differing perspectives on Australian bush life, both Lawson and Paterson are often mentioned in the same breath as Australia's most iconic and influential writers. Both were masters of the descriptive phrase, telling the story of our nation in rhythm and rhyme, and reflecting the harsh realities and romanticism of pioneer life. In 1939, Banjo Paterson recalled his thoughts about the Bulletin Debate. Henry Lawson was a man of remarkable insight in some things and extraordinary simplicity in others. We were both looking for the same reef, if you get what I mean, but I had done my prospecting on horseback and had my meals cooked for me, whilst Lawson had done his prospecting on foot and had had to cook for himself. Nobody realised this better than Lawson, and one day he suggested that we should ride against each other, he putting the bush from his point of view and me putting it from mine. We ought to do pretty well out of it, he said. We ought to be able to get in 3 or 4 sets of verses before they stop us. This suited me all right, for we were working on space and the pay was very small, so we slam-banged away at each other for weeks and weeks, not until they stopped us, but until we ran out of material. Shots fired. On the 9th of July 1892, Lawson published a poem in the Bulletin entitled Borderland, later retitled Up the Country. In this poem, beginning with the verse, I am back from up the country, very sorry that I went, Lawson attacked the typical romanticised view of bush life. On the 23rd of July 1892, Paterson published his reply to Lawson's poem titled In Defence of the Bush. Whilst Lawson had accused writers such as Paterson of being city bushmen, Paterson countered by claiming that Lawson's view of the bush life was full of doom and gloom. He finished the poem with the line, "For the bush will never suit you, and you'll never suit the bush."